to laugh. Laughter is very important. And I grew up with jokes and comedy in my childhood because we couldn't afford any outside entertainment. In fact, we didn't even get June bugs till August. Anyway, we gathered around the pot-bellied stove while Mom fixed breakfast. And then we all went to the breakfast table. She served us all, and we all ate together. That's the way it was. But the first time that I remember being laughed at is I came out to gather around the stove, and I was barefoot. And my mom said, "Go back and put your shoes on." So I went back in and put my shoes on. When I came out, all my siblings were laughing, just laughing at me. And I said, "Mama, they're laughing at me." "Why are they laughing at me?" She said, "Well, you have your shoes on the wrong feet." And I said, "But these are the only feet I have." And that's a true story. So, one of Mom's remarks I remember was, the lady down the street was so neat and clean you could eat off her floor. Well, we wanted to go down there and see what she had on her floor. But you all know, we have a lot of teachers here. Teachers and educators, people with 2 and 3 degrees. My goodness, they're smart. Speaking about smart people and educators and stuff, Dr. Einstein, you know all about him, the genius about math, science, physics, everything. They were having the final exam for his physics class. And one of the students popped up and says, "Dr. Einstein, these questions, aren't they the same that you had on last year's exam?" He said, "Yes, but this year the answers are different." And then Einstein dies and goes to heaven. You know that. In heaven, Albert Einstein had 3 cloudmates. And so he was going around meeting his cloudmates, and he said to the first one, "What's your IQ?" And he said, he said 198. And Einstein said, "Splendid. We shall discuss brand unification theory and debate philosophy." And then Einstein asked the second cloud man, what was his IQ? He said 139. He said, "Wonderful. We'll spend happy hours discussing art and music." So he asked the third cloud mate what was his IQ. And he said 47. And Einstein said, 47? So, how about them Cowboys? This not too bright a lawyer goes into a bar. We get these bar stories every now and then. Goes into a bar and he says, "Is this the place where I take my exam?" He goes into a bar, and this is where he takes his exam. I'll repeat it. There was a grasshopper goes into a bar, hops up on the bar, and the bartender said, "Hey, we have a drink named after you." And the grasshopper says, "Oh, you have a drink named Harry?" And every now and then I get this brochure and it's addressed to Dr. Paul. It's all about this school of Chinese acupuncture for animals. And of course it's in Florida, where else? And this must be something to that Chinese acupuncture, because I've never seen a sick porcupine. There's a chicken farmer. Any chicken farmer friends? There's a chicken farmer that was having problems with his chickens. They were sick and some were dying. So he wanted this really was gonna cut into his profit. So he wanted to find out what was wrong with his chickens. So he goes out and wrings one of them's neck, puts it in a special package, and sends it to the veterinary school to be examined to find out what's wrong with his chicken. 2 or 3 days later, he gets this report back and says, "We have analyzed your chicken, and we have decided it died of a broken neck." Well, we have dog stories, of course. I don't know what a shaggy dog story is exactly, so if these are shaggy, okay. If they're not, okay. But the dog goes into Western Union, and the clerk hands him a form to fill out, and he fills it out. Woof, 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 woof. Hands it back to the clerk. The clerk says, "You've only got 9 words on here. You can add another woof for the same price." He said, "Oh, but it wouldn't mean the same thing." 2 dogs were walking down the street and they see this parking meter. And one dog says to the other, "Oh, look, a pay toilet." We're going to the dog, aren't we? The doc gets a phone call and says, "Hey, doc, help, help. I spilled spot remover on my dog and she's gone." Some of you that have been here a while, a few years, remember a resident that lived upstairs from me, and he was a prize-winning dairy farmer in Yukon. He'd won all kinds of prizes on his dairy herd. And he also taught dairy science at OSU. Wonderful guy. But one day I thought, I couldn't help but ask him, if a cow doesn't produce, is she a milk dud or an utter failure? And then there's that crazy commercial. This was the truth. It says, "Kiss your hemorrhoids goodbye." Oh. My older son likes to go to the Santa Fe Opera, and he's taken me a couple times. I try to understand the opera, but I just don't quite understand it. The guy gets stabbed, and he instead of just bleeding, he sings. I don't worry too much about getting older, really. As I get older, I don't say I'm lazy. I'm just energy efficient. And when senility hits you, you won't even know it. Growing old is like anything else. You have to start young. There was this cowboy talking to his grandson, and he said, "This is the way you can grow to be an old man, have a long age." He said, "You have to put just a little bit of gunpowder on your oatmeal every morning."
Oh, no.
And the young man thought, "Oh, yeah, you got to put just a little oatmeal." Sure enough, this young grandson became an old man, and he followed that religiously, always putting gunpowder on his oatmeal. He lived to be 95. When he died, he left three children, 8 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren, and a 15-foot hole in the crematorium. I was a kid when the Dead Sea was just sick. Nancy thinks that's funny.
She cracked herself.
Nancy, share that with us. Nancy's having fun back there. Nan, not Nancy, Nan Scott. Well, that's Nancy. I've been reading about this artificial intelligence, and I'm not kidding. I cut the article out. I've read it over and over again. And they have this software that you can take your CT, your CAT scan, and your x-rays and feed it into this software, and it'll interpret. Who needs a doctor? They'll say, "Your algorithm will see you now." And they have this new surgery kit so you can stitch up your own incision.
Oh no.
It's called Suit Yourself.
Suit yourself.
Helen's having a good time. Thank you, Helen. Thank you for laughing. I was over at Central Park the other day, and I saw these two grasshoppers crawling through the grass. Not grasshoppers, I'm sorry. Insects, caterpillars crawling through the grass. Pretty soon a butterfly goes by. This one caterpillar says, "You'll never catch me up there with one of those things." Debbie Miller tells us that we are what we eat.
Oh no.
So some of us, maybe a lot of us, are cheap, quick, and easy. She also teaches us about self-confidence. I went to the bookstore one time recently, and I asked where the self-help section was. The clerk said, "If I told you, it would defeat the purpose." Confidence is when you go after Moby Dick in a rowboat with a harpoon and some tartar sauce. This didn't happen at the Cove, but it happened at a restaurant. This old fella ordered a bowl of soup, and the waiter brings the bowl of soup and starts to walk away. And the old guy beckons the waiter, "Taste this soup." Waiter said, "Is it too hot?" The old man said, "Taste it." Shakes his head and says, "Taste it." The waiter said, "Is it too cold?" Said, "Taste it." "Is it too spicy?" The waiter says. "Taste it." I said, "Taste the soup." And the waiter then is totally exasperated. She said, "Okay, I'll taste it. Where's the spoon?" "Aha!" says the old man. Some people may depend on self-confidence, but really, a lot of people depend on a rabbit's foot. It wasn't too good for the rabbit, was it? Well, they say you don't know what you're talking about. When you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know when you're finished. Well, I'm not quite finished. I have one more golf story. The old Irish golfer was going to see his friend who was on his way out to the golf course in the sky. And his friend made a request of his golfer friend, and says, "As soon as I'm buried and the sod is in my place, I want you to come back alone with a fifth of the finest Irish whiskey you can have and pour it over my grave." The friend, a practical man, winked and said, "Aye, and sure I'd be glad, but if you don't mind, I'll run it through my kidneys first."
Oh.
I'm finished. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was ever done for me. It isn't every day good fortune comes my way. I never thought the future would be good for me. And if I had a bugle, I would blow it to add a sort of a Rudy-Doody touch. So since I left my bugle at home, I'm simply gonna say, thank you very, very, thank you very, very much.